All right, so are you ready to dive into this crazy world of Chinese large language models?
Oh, yeah, always ready to jump into the deep end.
Well, get ready, because today we're going deep on how the scene in China is shifting. Huge corporations are making power plays all over the place, and things are getting interesting.
Definitely interesting. I mean, think about it. Just a year ago, we were all wondering which startup would become like the Chinese OpenAI, and now everything's different. Those big tech companies are really shaking things up.
Yeah, so today we're focusing on ByteDance. You know, the TikTok people. They're really making waves and changing the game for everybody.
It's wild, right? They weren't the first ones in the LLM game in China, but they've caught up so fast.
So that's what we're going to figure out today. How is this whole battle for AI dominance playing out? Who are the big names? And what does it all mean for the future of AI in China?
A lot of it comes down to how these big corporations are flexing their muscles. They have the resources to just
Outspend everyone.
exactly outspend, outmarket, and even poach the top talent. It's a tough spot for startups to be in.
So are the startups basically getting squeezed out?
Kinda. Like, imagine you're a founder. You've put everything into building this amazing LLM. And suddenly, ByteDance shows up with their practically unlimited budget, and they're coming right for you.
Ouch. Okay, so let's break this down. What is ByteDance doing that's so different and so effective? Because it's not like they were first to the party here.
That's the interesting part. They were actually late to the game. But the way they caught up is fascinating. A lot of it goes back to their founder, Zhang Yiming.
Oh, yeah? What did he do?
He took a super hands-on approach to AI. Like, we're talking personally meeting with top researchers. Some of them hadn't even graduated yet.
Wow. So he was serious about this.
Oh, absolutely. He wanted the best, and he was willing to go after them himself. It was a clear message that ByteDance was all in on AI.
That's a powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
When a founder gets that involved, it shows real commitment.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Steve Jobs back in the day, handpicking people for Apple.
Exactly. Leadership can make or break these tech races. And ByteDance didn't stop at just researchers. They went on a massive hiring spree and poached AI talent from everywhere, even from startups they'd invested in before. We're talking crazy salaries and benefits to get those experts to jump ship.
So basically, we're here to win and we'll spend whatever it takes.
Pretty much. And it worked. They got some serious heavy hitters, like Zhu Cheng.
Oh, wow. Wasn't he the head of Alibaba's Tongyi large language model?
That's the one. They weren't messing around.
You mentioned Alibaba earlier. They were actually early investors in some of these startups. I bet those startups weren't too happy when Alibaba decided to become their competitor.
Oh, yeah, there were definitely some raised eyebrows.
One minute you're a supportive investor, the next you're the competition. That's got to be rough.
It was a big shift for everyone. And then you've got ByteDance poaching talent from these same startups they were supposed to be supporting.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
Mm-hmm.
So these startups are dealing with all that on top of just trying to build a product that can compete with a giant like ByteDance.
It's a tough situation, no doubt. But let's talk about what ByteDance actually built, because it wasn't just the talent.
Right. They actually made stuff.
They did. They launched this app called Dubao, and it just exploded in popularity.
Dubao. Okay, I've heard of that. Is that their answer to ChatGPT or something?
Kinda. It's a chat bot, but they've integrated it really cleverly into their existing platforms like Douyin.
Which is basically the Chinese version of TikTok, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they had this huge built-in audience right from the start.
So smart. It's not just about building a cool product. It's about getting it into the hands of millions of users.
And in China, that means understanding the mobile internet ecosystem, which ByteDance obviously dominates.
So we've got this classic David and Goliath situation playing out. And as we've seen, David's taking a beating. But there's got to be some hope for those smaller players, right? They can't all just get swallowed up by the giants.
Oh, there's definitely hope. It's just going to take some serious strategy and some clever maneuvering.
Okay, so that's what we're going to dig into in part 2. We'll explore what those startups can do to not just survive, but maybe even thrive in this crazy market. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, everyone. So last time we were talking about how ByteDance just exploded onto the Chinese LLM scene.
Yeah, they went from 0 to 100 real quick. It's pretty impressive.
It is. And they did it by making some really smart moves that kind of changed the game for everyone.
For sure. They saw an opportunity and they just went all in. It's like they reinvented themselves almost overnight.
Right. So let's break down some of those moves. You mentioned earlier that Zhang Yiming, the ByteDance founder, was really personally invested in AI.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't just interested. He was committed. Like, he was in the trenches with the developers and researchers.
What do you mean by in the trenches?
I mean, he was meeting with people directly, going to conferences, scouting out talent himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he was really hands-on.
Super hands-on. He wanted to make ByteDance an AI powerhouse, and he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
That's pretty inspiring, actually. It shows how much he believed in this.
It does. And it wasn't just about attracting talent. They also built a whole system to support them.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
So they created this special AI division called Flow,
Flow.
and they gave it a ton of power within the company. Like, it was on the same level as their biggest departments, doing Faishu, all that.
So AI was a top priority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Flow could pull resources and talent from anywhere in the company, which is kind of unusual for a company that big.
Yeah, usually things are more siloed, right?
Right. But they knew they had to move fast to win in AI. And that meant breaking down those walls.
It's kind of like they gave their AI division the keys to the kingdom.
Pretty much. They were like, go make us the leaders in AI. We trust you.
That's a lot of trust and a lot of pressure.
Oh, for sure. But it worked. They got things done fast, and that speed was a huge advantage.
So they had the talent, they had the structure. What about the actual products? What did they build with all this?
So they took this really interesting approach. They didn't just focus on one or two big LLMs.
They didn't.
Nope, they went broad. They launched like a dozen different AI applications. Everything from productivity tools to entertainment platforms.
Wow. That's a lot.
It was a saturate the market strategy, which is pretty different from what other companies were doing.
So they were just trying to get AI into as many hands as possible.
Exactly. They wanted to be everywhere. And they even went beyond software.
What do you mean?
They started making AI hardware too.
No way. Like what?
Like, they released these headphones called Ola Friend,
Ola Friend, okay.
and they let you interact with their Duo LLM using voice commands.
So you can talk to your AI while you're walking down the street.
Pretty much. It's like having a conversation with your AI buddy wherever you go.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And I heard they're even working on AI-powered glasses now.
Yeah, they're not messing around. They see AI as this transformative technology that's going to be everywhere.
It's like they're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Kinda. But it's working. They're definitely making a splash.
So we've talked about the good stuff, the talent, the structure, the innovation, but all this rapid expansion must have created some tension with those startups they were initially supporting, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was a huge shock for those startups.
Like, imagine you're at a friendly basketball game and suddenly LeBron James and Michael Jordan show up on the other team.
Exactly. They were used to Alibaba and ByteDance being their buddies, and then suddenly they were the competition.
That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about competition either, right?
Right. ByteDance was using their massive resources to kind of outmaneuver the startups.
How so?
Well, they had a huge advantage in things like app development, user acquisition marketing, all that
Like,
stuff.
they control the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And they weren't afraid to use that to their advantage. Like, they would offer better deals to companies that switched to using ByteDance's LLMs.
So basically, they were using their power to squeeze out the competition.
It's a classic big company move, but it's effective.
So it sounds like these startups were caught in a perfect storm. But let's switch gears a bit and talk about ByteDance internally. Was everyone on board with this aggressive approach?
You know, it's interesting. Not every employee was thrilled with this win-at-all-costs mentality.
Really? Why not?
Well, some people felt like their main LLM Dubao was kind of artificial.
Artificial? What do you mean?
Like, they called it an ICU product.
ICU product. Okay, I've never heard that one before.
It means it was heavily reliant on marketing and couldn't really survive on its own merits.
So they were basically pumping it up with hype.
Kinda. And some people felt like it wasn't a sustainable strategy.
Interesting. So even within ByteDance, there were doubts.
Oh, yeah. There were definitely some internal debates about whether this was the right approach.
It makes you wonder if Dubao's success is really sustainable or if it's just a temporary bubble.
Exactly. And that brings up some really important questions about the whole LLM landscape.
Like what?
Like, is this all just hype? Or is there real substance here? Can these LLMs actually deliver on their promises?
Those are good questions. And I think we're going to explore those in more detail in part 3, because we still need to talk about what those startups can do to survive in this crazy market.
Right, because it's not over yet. There's
Ah.
still a lot of fight left in those, Davids.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back to talk about the strategies and opportunities for startups in the Chinese LLM market. Welcome back to the show. So we've seen how ByteDance has basically become the Goliath in the Chinese LLM market.
Yeah, they're the giant everyone else is trying to figure out how to deal with.
Right. And it's a tough situation for those startups, but it's not impossible. Like, we all know the story of David and Goliath. Sometimes the underdog can win.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How those startups can not just survive, but actually thrive in this market.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that specialization could be a good strategy, but isn't that just admitting defeat in the broader market?
Not necessarily. It's about recognizing your strengths and finding a niche where you can excel.
So instead of trying to compete head-to-head with ByteDance, they're focusing on specific areas where they can actually win.
Exactly. Like think about those AI companionship apps we talked about, Talkie and Xingji.
Yeah, AI friends,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
But is that really a sustainable business model? It seems kind of niche.
It might seem niche, but loneliness is a huge problem. And these apps are offering a solution that's really resonating with people.
So they're tapping into a real need and providing a service that the giants might overlook.
Right. And they're doing it in a way that's personal and engaging. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. They're focusing on being the best at one thing.
So they're finding their own battlefield, one where they can actually win.
Exactly. And that's a key strategy for any startup going up against a giant. Like, you got to pick your battles.
Makes sense. So specialization is one option. What about the startups that are still determined to compete head-on with ByteDance? Is there any hope for them?
It's definitely tougher, but not impossible. One thing they need to do is attract and retain top talent.
Okay, but ByteDance can just outbid them, right? They have the money to throw around.
True. But it's not always about the money. Sometimes people are looking for more than just a big paycheck.
So what else can these startups offer?
They can offer ownership purpose, the chance to make a real impact, things that you might not get at a huge corporation.
So they're appealing to people's idealism and ambition.
Exactly. And startups are often more agile, dynamic, entrepreneurial. You can have a bigger impact, wear more hats, be closer to the action.
So it's a different kind of work experience. More exciting, maybe.
Right. And that can be really appealing to certain types of people.
Yeah.
Even those who could make a ton of money at a place like ByteDance.
So they're competing on culture and values, not just salary.
Exactly. And that's a smart move because
Yeah.
you can't always win a bidding war with a giant, but you can create an environment that people are drawn to.
So talent is one factor.
Yeah.
What else could help these startups compete?
Well, the technology itself is still evolving rapidly, and the next big breakthrough could come from anywhere.
So you're saying that a small startup could potentially leapfrog ByteDance with a new innovation.
It's definitely possible. Startups are often more nimble and experimental. They're willing to take risks that big companies might shy away from.
So if a startup were to develop a truly groundbreaking LLM technology, that could change everything.
Absolutely. It would be a game changer, and it would give them a huge advantage.
That would be amazing. The ultimate underdog story. But even with a new technology, wouldn't they still face the problem of distribution? Like, ByteDance controls so much of the mobile internet in China.
True, but distribution channels are also evolving. New platforms are emerging all the time.
So it's not just about competing within the existing ecosystem. It's about finding new ways to reach users.
Exactly. Like, think about the rise of Discord. It's created this whole new way for communities to form and interact.
And startups could leverage those kinds of platforms to build their own audiences.
Right. They can use social media, online forums, even the metaverse to connect directly with their target users.
So there are definitely ways to bypass the traditional gatekeepers.
Absolutely. It just takes creativity and a willingness to try new things.
So we've talked about a lot of different strategies for startups in the Chinese LLM market. What are your final thoughts on this whole landscape?
I think it's incredibly dynamic and exciting. There's so much innovation happening. And even though ByteDance is the big player now, things could change very quickly.
It's a reminder that in the tech world, the only constant is change.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating to watch. And who knows, maybe one of these startups will be the next giant to disrupt the market.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of Chinese LLMs. But this is just the beginning of the story. The battle for AI dominance is far from over.
And we'll be here to cover every twist and turn, so stay tuned.
And to all you listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep pushing the boundaries of knowledge. Until next time.